This episode of Bulletproof Cash Flow is brought to you by Realty Dynamics. Learn how people like you can build substantial passive income while creating wealth for the long term through real estate investing. Visit rdyne.com. That's RDYNE.com.
The easy pro tip. Texting is not interviewing. Emailing is not interviewing. Phone calls are interviews. And more than likely, you're not going to be able to get a property manager on Zoom. It's just they're too busy for that. But phone calls, that is how you interview people. My suggestion, interview as many as you can, multiple times. In fact, with all of my students, I have a laundry list, like 22 questions and the answers. So questions you should ask and the answers of what you want to get from them so that they can ask them when they're interviewing.
Working because you want to, not because you have to, is financial freedom. And we want to help you create that. Welcome to the Bulletproof Cash Flow Show. We're going to teach you how to achieve lifetime financial freedom through real estate investment. Your host is a multifamily syndicator and property developer. He's done deals reaching into the hundreds of millions of dollars. You'll hear from experts in all aspects of real estate investment, finance, development, and management. Everything you need is right here. This is the Bulletproof Cash Flow Show. And this is your host, Augustino Pintus.
Hey everyone, it's Augustino. When you work at a 9-to-5 job, your worth, your value is determined by your employer. Now, it's also worth noting that your ability to keep food on the table can be taken away at any given moment, and you're not in control of your income. Now, have you ever thought, what if you can determine your own worth or even create passive income of your own? Now, today's guest has actually done this. After getting laid off from his job, he decided to pursue investing. By 2016, he built a portfolio of 30 properties, becoming what he calls successfully unemployed. Now, while he loves passive income, he made some mistakes along the way with a few investments, and this is why it's important to build your business first, challenging yourself to look for markets with good inventory and select a team before you go big on your property acquisitions. Now, today, he's the founder of Master Passive Income, Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference, and Successfully Unemployed. Now, with all that, I'd like to welcome Dustin Heiner to the show. Dustin, buddy, thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, Augustino. It's so great to be on the show. And yeah, I love real estate investing. In fact, that's what's blessed me to not work for somebody else, to be successfully unemployed. And now all day I just have fun, go to the gym, hang out with my family, come on podcasts and talk to great people like you. And the more you and I talk, the more I realize we have a lot in common. Real estate investing, everything in general. So it's really fun being able to hang out with you again.
Well, hey, it's great hanging out with you too. I think the whole sense of freedom really comes to mind when you're an entrepreneur and you're successfully unemployed, right? Now, before I go on though, if you want to reach out to Dustin, you like what he has to say, you can reach him via the contact page at masterpassiveincome.com. Okay, Dustin, go ahead and tell the listeners a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, totally, Augustino. So I'll go to the end, but I'll quickly go right back to the beginning. So when I was 37 years old, I was blessed to be able to quit my job. And that's because I bought enough real estate or rental properties that would provide enough money for myself and my family rather than working for somebody else. Now, it didn't start out that way. In fact, I started out the opposite of what normally we're all taught. So we're all taught this. We're all taught to go to school, from the time we're born, go to school, become a cog in a machine eventually where you're working a job. So go to school, get good grades. Then you go to college and get thousands of dollars into debt, and then get good grades again and get a piece of paper. It's called a degree. And then you go to companies and you try to get a career there and work 40 plus years of your life, eventually hopefully retire at 65, 70 years old when you are trying to live on what you managed to save that entire time you're working that JOB. And I like the JOB meaning the just over broke job. So I'm doing that exact same thing. But at the same time, I've always been entrepreneurial, starting businesses and that mindset. So when I was 13 years old, I had a newspaper out. Not a lot of people know what newspapers are, but I would ride around on my bike at 5 a.m. and throw newspapers at 5 a.m., banging them on garage doors, waking people up. I even had a graphic website design company. I had a skateboard manufacturing business, even a pizzeria and a convenience store. Like I started always from scratch, but I was also following what we've been told. So I got the most stable, secure job I could ever think of. I was working in California at the time in local county government and doing technology. California is definitely not going away. Government, it will probably never go away, and technology is not going away. So I got the most stable, secure job ever. and I bought one rental property. That one rental property made me, and I remember the check, plain as day, it was $317. I remember mine visibly. And I got that and I thought, oh my goodness, like I need to be an investor. Like I just need to do everything investing because I made money without working. I was sleeping. Now with that though, I, just like everybody, it happens. Life started getting in the way. My wife and I started having kids, 1, 2, 3, and four kids. And this is the story of what really shoved me or catapulted me into real estate investing. So when my wife had our fourth child, I went on paternity leave. You know, it's where the dad stays home with the mom, changes poopy diapers and bonds with the baby and all that good stuff. Well, after about 2 weeks, I go back to my job and I go back to work. And that same week I go back to work and it's a regular sit down desk job, government job, just a horrible government job. Well, on a Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon, I get a call from my boss's secretary, like the top dog. And she says, Dustin, would you please come to the office? I said, sure. And then I hung up the phone and I paused for a second. I thought, why in the world did they call me the office? Like, this isn't normal. And I've seen plenty of movies. Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon is not a good sign. And I thought to myself, what is going on? But then I also remembered a couple months before I went on paternity leave, there was some rumors or some rumbling going on that there could potentially be layoffs in the county. And I immediately shook that off. I immediately said, no way, I got so much seniority here. My bosses think I do a great job. So I shake it off and I get up and I walk down the hallway to my boss's office. Now, Augustino, this hallway isn't very long. In fact, it's kind of short, but every single step that I take, it feels like the hallway gets longer and longer and longer. And it feels like my feet become lead bricks because it's dawning on me that I could potentially lose my job. Well, as I get down the hallway, I turn the corner and I see my boss's door. His door is closed and I see his secretary there. Super sweet, nice old lady. She says, Dustin, would you please have a seat? And she's kind of sheepishly grinning at me, trying to console me with her eyes because she knows everything about what's going on. I know nothing about what's going on. So I go and I take my seat. And as I'm sitting there, I start thinking about my life. This whole plan that they told us to work 40 plus years, eventually retire. If I lose my job right now, did I just waste my life doing this? And then I realized, my goodness, if I don't have a job, I'm not going to be able to feed my family. Does that make me a failure as a father? Does that make me a failure as a husband, as a man trying to provide for his family? Well, as I'm sitting there, my hands get all clammy, my forehead gets all sweaty because the weight of everything is crushing down on me. Then the door to my boss's office opens up. And out walks a lady, a coworker of mine, with a piece of paper in her hands. She is noticeably distraught, noticeably upset. She's not necessarily crying, but you could tell her world has been rocked. She passes by me. My boss says, Dustin, would you please come in the office? So I get up and I go into his office and I get laid off. And remember, this is the government. Nobody gets fired or laid off from the government, but I did. This is the reason why I tell the story. So hopefully you listening will learn from this. So I take that layoff notice and I go back to my desk and I sit down in my desk, just getting laid off. And I realize two things sitting there. Number one, I need to get another job. I need to be able to provide for the family. So I was really, really blessed, praise the Lord, to find another job in the same county, a whole different department, wasn't having trouble with money. So check, got that. The second thing, and everybody, you need to realize this, and Augustino led into this absolutely as well, that I needed to make sure that nobody could do this to me again. I need to make sure that nobody has the ability to take away my ability to feed my family. So right then and there, I realized I needed to be an investor, but life got in the way. I said, no more would I ever let life get in the way. In fact, whenever anybody would ask me the question, I made this change in my mind. If anybody would ask me a question, what do you do? You know, we all get that question, what do you do? I would normally reply my job like, yeah, I work for the county, I do technology. Well, I'm basically projecting the value that I put on myself as coming from my job. No, my value doesn't come from my job. My value comes from my family, from myself, and from my God. So right then and there, I told myself, I will always respond, I am an investor. Now, it may so happen that 100% of my money comes from my job. That's now my part-time job. I am now a full-time investor. So fast forward the story, started buying property after property after property, each one making me $250 or more in passive income. Eventually, I had 30 plus properties and I realized, my goodness, even though I'm making $75,000 a year at this job, I'm losing money. So the last part of the story, I went to my news boss, great boss and all, and I gave him, I said, here's your 2 weeks notice, boss. Like, I'm laying you off. You know, jokingly, we laughed. And he says, Dustin, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't have to do anything. I own real estate that makes money for me without even working. Well, the last part of the story, I walked to and from my car 1,000 times, a mile and a half walk. I'm too frugal to pay for parking. It was in downtown. If you remember that short hallway, they got longer and longer and longer where my feet felt like lead bricks. The last part is I walked away from my job for the very last time to go to my car. I felt like I was walking on clouds because I knew I would never, ever need a job again. And on top of that, everybody listening, you need to realize that you will never get paid what you are worth. You're worth so much more than anybody could ever pay you. And this is how you'll know. Your boss is paying you just enough to keep you working without quitting, but not so much money that takes money out of their pocket. So if you got paid what you're worth, they would probably go broke. So if you pull yourself out of the system where you then create your own either businesses or real estate investing or whatever it might be, that is when you become independent, financially independent, free from this. Now I literally have 40 plus hours of my life back to now invest in more real estate, to build more businesses, to be with my family and come on shows and talk to great people like you. So that's what I want you to realize is that my mistake, and I realize now, because I thought it was risky to invest in real estate. Even though I had one property, I still thought it was risky. It was less risky to work for the government. It is more risky to put your life in somebody else's hands than you taking advantage of what you have opportunities in front of you and go after that. So I'll pause the story because you probably got plenty of questions.
Hey, Augustino here, and I would love to connect directly with you. Text the word books to 844-428-1344 to receive weekly book recommendations from me. No, hey, listen, and I think something to add to that, though, is that it doesn't matter what level you're at. I mean, I was a CIO. I used to run large enterprise technology groups, and same thing happened to me. You know, as a matter of fact, I mean, you're probably doing a good job. You're doing everything great. I was in a turnaround situation. I fixed the company. The company was doing very, very badly prior to me getting there. I was brought in to turn the ship around, and I did. And the thanks I got was getting canned. You know, they hand you the box, and you're out the door. Anybody and everybody is vulnerable, even if you are at the top of the list of the best performers. You know, so I think now more than ever, just because of not only that unsafe scenario, it's not safe working for anybody. It's very unsafe technically, but also you have to keep in mind that what happened over the last 2-3 years. We printed off trillions of dollars. The value of the dollar is going down. We're seeing it firsthand. I'm sure you're seeing it too in some of the assets that you're currently holding. It's a hard time for these people. And eventually, and the reason why it's a hard time for those people is because that value of the dollar keeps going down. You have to find ways of building passive income, not only because the value of the dollar is going down, but also because it's like your own insurance policy when things really go topsy-turvy. And we're not done yet. It's going to get worse before it gets better. You know, so
I totally agree with that.
It's absolutely true. Yeah, it's absolutely true. And I mean, I think I said it on your show. I'm not passing judgment on corporate America. I think you hate corporate America worse than I do, I think. But you know, but hey, I understand what it's there for, but I also understand too. It's entrepreneurship's not for everybody either. You know, I get it. Some people are fine owning. You know, hey, listen, if I can own 1,000 units and still have my job, sure, do that. Why not? You know, you don't have to.
Well, it's the freedom, and
it's the
freedom. You hit the
freedom.
nail on the head. It's the freedom to choose to do whatever you want. If let's say you love your job. That's great. Continue working your job. Let's say that, God forbid, something happened to where, let's say you had to take care of your parents and you couldn't work that job. This is the only way. Well, let's say you had enough money coming in from your real estate or your businesses or whatever that you're independent. It's the freedom to choose whatever it is that you want to do. If it's working that job, then it's great. If you want to try to find another job, if it's you take up your hobby of painting because you have plenty of time, that's what we look for, is getting the financial freedom so then we can have freedom in our lives.
Yeah. I think part of it too, though, is that when you're no longer in the cog anymore and you do take on the role of entrepreneur, do you take on the role of investor, you start sourcing data in very different places. I noticed that. I've interviewed a lot of folks here on this show. I've been on a lot of shows too. And there's a common theme that for many of these people that have decided to take on the role of entrepreneur, they're not doing the same things that a lot of these other folks do. in terms of, the 40-hour slog, so to speak, right? I can't think of a better word, but you start looking at things very, very differently, and I don't want to get political, but I think that especially with what's projected on television, I really don't know how much television you watch. I don't watch any TV at all anymore.
Very, very little. Like if anything, it's very, very little. In fact, I remember it was Denzel Washington. I heard him say it, but somebody else probably said it. But if you don't watch the news, you're uninformed. If you do watch the news, you're misinformed. Like either way. So, but you're right. There are other ways to get all this information. In fact, YouTube, social media has been a force for good and evil, but really good because a lot of information is getting out that we would normally never have gotten, like seeing what's going on with the printing of money. What the news is trying to tell us is that everything's great, everything hunky-dory, go spend money. No, but what they're doing is they're literally they're inflating the value of our currency. So not value, but like there's so much more currency, so the value is so much less. In fact, just inflation alone right now is what I would venture to say. If the government's saying 8%, more than likely it's like 12 because they only tell you what they want you to hear. But at the same time, if you get, like you said, assets or businesses or something that is not pegged to inflation, meaning if you have a job, inflation goes up, well, you keep getting paid that same amount. Well, then your dollar, you get paid less because in a sense, like you get the same amount of money, but it doesn't go nearly as far. But if you have like us, like Augustino and myself, if you have real estate, I buy and hold real estate. I have 30 plus properties now, each one making me $250 a month in passive income. Inflation goes up, which is a bummer, but guess what else goes up? My rents go up. So as inflation goes up, it stayed together to where I'm not making less money. I am actually able to make the same amount of money even though inflation is going up. So if you have that mentality to say, let me figure out a way to get out of this machine, and you're 100% right, I would probably say 75% of the population, they're perfect to be employees. They love it. That's perfect for them. Then that's great. But not your listeners, your audience here. We're 25% of the population that we don't accept that. We know there's more out there. And obviously listen to your show. They're here realizing we can create cash flow that makes us money every single month, that takes us out of that machine. We can then use that 40 plus hours of our life to make even more businesses, buy more real estate or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's right. So, okay, great. So you just fired your boss. You're sitting on 30 some units now. So what sort of mistakes did you make getting into those first deals? Because I think that's where a lot of these folks listening right now, they're probably wondering, okay, great. Well, Dustin bought all this stuff, super duper. How does he know how to do it? And what mistakes did you make?
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head at the very beginning. I love to build the business first. The mistake that I made was I didn't do that. So I'll quickly walk you through it. I was in 2006 when I first started investing. I didn't know what I was doing. I was watching TV late at night. One of those late night infomercials came on and, hey, we're real estate gurus. We're coming here in town, a free 2-hour seminar. Come. And so I was excited. I went to that 2-hour seminar, all hype, all sales pitch. And then they said, okay, now it's our next two-day seminar is normally $50,000, but it's only $1,000 today. Run to the back. So I ran to the back. I was so excited, spent $1,000, and it was so horrible. The next 2 hours or 2-day seminar was all hype, all sales pitch for their $50,000 courses, their $80,000. It was horrible, but I did take a little bit from them, and then I implemented it. And kid you not, for me, I lost lots of money doing it the wrong way that they tell you. This is what they tell you. I'll tell you the wrong way that I did that I've then figured out the right way. But I want you to quickly forget it. So this is what the gurus will tell you. You find a property anywhere in the country. Then you run the numbers, making sure you're making, let's say, $50 a month in passive income, but you'll invest for appreciation because you'll love appreciation. Remember, this was 2006. They were saying, this is going to be great. I didn't do that, but this is what they said. You want to have $50 a month in passive income and you'll get appreciation, which we know we don't invest for appreciation. From that, they say spend thousands of dollars to buy the property, then spend thousands of dollars to fix up the property, then find a tenant to live in there, then find a property manager. Well, in my opinion, that's just about backwards because I did that and my property manager started stealing from me within 6 months. It was absolutely horrible. Now, here's the right way, and you hit the nail on the head, Augustino. We build the business first to make sure, and remember, I did the wrong way, but then I didn't sulk there and say, it doesn't work and just give up. No, I wouldn't be here today. But what I did was I approached it from a business mindset because, like I said, I've started many businesses. I love business. And so I said, what if I hired the people in my business before I bought the property? This is what you're going to expect. If it's a really good business that you're building, let's say you do it the wrong way. You call up, hey, property manager, I just bought this property, number 1 Happy Street. Would you be able to manage it? Sadly, I get a lot of people tell me that they call and the property manager says, no, I won't manage that because I'll get shot there. Well, you no longer have an asset anymore. You have a liability. How much better would it be if you call up the property manager? Because remember, you built the business first. You have everybody working in the business for you. Say, hey, property manager, I'm looking to buy this property. How much will I rent for? What's the type of clientele? What's the vacancy factor? Will you manage it? If they say, no, I won't manage it, then you saved all that time and money and effort not buying that property. You move on. But if they say, well, it'll rent for this much, this is the type of clientele, this is the vacancy factor, and yes, I will manage it, check. Then you have the experts there on the ground that are going to help you. Like Zillow's not an expert, Redfin, Trulia, LoopNet, like they're not experts. Who are experts is those people that literally live there on the ground. Because I love investing all over the country because in my backyard, it's kind of pricey right now. I'm in Phoenix. It's kind of pricey right now, but everywhere there's going to be great places. So that's the number one mistake that I made was I was following those quote unquote gurus who literally told me the wrong way. They were just regurgitating the things that they have seen and heard. But no, I'm an investor. I figured out the right way is to build the business first. And the last thing I'll say, I'll quickly give you an analogy of what that looks like. So if you're going to start a convenience store, convenience store, candy bars and soda machines and all the good stuff. Well, you're not going to sign a lease on a location, open the doors and set a box of candy bars in there on the ground. No, you wouldn't do that. You go out of business in 2 seconds. But what you would do is you would build the business first. You get the gondolas, the shelving units that all the candy bars get on, the cold storage, the countertops, the cash registers, employees, insurance, bank accounts, everything in the business before you buy any inventory. Once you have the entire business built, then you buy the inventory and put it into your business. Same thing with real estate investing. We get the property managers, the mortgage brokers, the insurance agents, the inspectors, plumbers, roofers, realtors, wholesalers. We get everybody ready in our business so that once we find that property, we can say, okay, now property manager, now realtor, now this, and you have everybody do the work for you. So that's the biggest mistake, and the right way to not follow that mistake and is build the business first.
I want to take a pause from today's show to share something that I've been encountering. As I speak to many investors, there's this concern, and the concern is centered around the inflation we've been experiencing and the devaluation of our currency. Now, we've seen some of the highest inflationary periods over the past 30 years. That's up over 8%. The economists actually believe that inflation is closer to 20%. Some say it's even more. Now, what does this mean for you? Well, it means that money that is sitting in your bank account or self-directed IRA that's not invested in physical assets that hedge against inflation are losing buying power. That means that every minute, every second, that dollar is becoming less valuable. You see this every day. You see this in the groceries you buy, the gasoline you buy, everyday items that you're buying on a daily basis are becoming more and more expensive, and you're using a less powerful dollar to buy these items, meaning that dollar is losing value and if it isn't put into a property that produces cash flow, just like real estate does. Now, our team here at Bulletproof Cash Flow has put together a series of weekly webinars that cover real estate investing like multifamily, net lease, and real estate development. Now, these are purely educational webinars. In these webinars, we talk about why real estate offers a powerful opportunity right now and why it makes sense to invest in these assets today. So if you're interested in real estate or want to have the opportunity to get involved as a hedge against inflation yourself, I encourage you to go to bulletproofcashflow.com/webinars. That's bulletproofcashflow.com/webinars. Now you go there, these webinars are 45 minutes and they cover different topics every week. We go over the things you need to know to avoid some of the common pitfalls when it comes to investing while getting you prepared to invest your paper dollars into a real physical asset. Now, if you can't make the webinars, just go ahead and register and we will send you a recording that you can watch at any time. And by the way, these webinars are entirely free. There's no cost to you. This is just something that we do to educate our folks out there. So if you're enjoying this episode, please like and subscribe to Bulletproof Cash Flow. It helps the channel tremendously when you do. Now let's go ahead and get back to the show. The property manager is the first person you land. That's the first one. A good property manager that is very well known specifically. That's one of the key things. I mean, that's what I did when I first got into a new market. When I first got started years and years and years ago, I found who's a popular property manager. And how you figure that out, you go to LoopNet. I know LoopNet's a place where deals go to die, but also property managers get on there too once in a blue moon. So once I partnered up with one of these guys, I mean, it took a while for him to get him to respond to my phone calls. He wouldn't respond, but once I spoke to him, I convinced him that I was going to build something big and got him on board. So then when I talked to the brokers, one of the first questions the broker asks you is, who's your property manager? And you have to say a name or a person or a company at a minimum. If you have nothing, you're going to look like a newbie, and then he'll hang up the phone on you. So absolutely. It's absolutely right. I gotta wonder though, it's like, who would actually tell somebody to just go ahead and buy a property and it's going to appreciate? That's just ridiculous, man. That's just nuts.
Well, that's what they were doing back then. Because
I remember.
Yeah, people were screaming, oh, you better buy now or you'll never be able to buy. And in fact, I remember them saying that in 2020 and 2021. You better buy now or you're never going to buy. And I was like, well, I'm an investor. I've seen this before. Let me be patient. And well, first, I'm going to continue to invest because I'm going to buy cash flow producing properties. But at the same time, I would never invest for appreciation because why would I sell the property if it's making me money? In fact, I'm literally going to give these properties and this entire business to my kids in generational wealth because I make money every single month. Just like if you create a business that makes money every single month, it'd be just like you being able to buy a candy bar and you can sell it for $1 all day, every day. But it costs you 50 cents to buy that candy bar, well, then great, you'd make 50 cents. But let's say, also another benefit about real estate is you can borrow money. Let's say you don't have that 50 cents, but it costs you 25 cents to borrow the 50 cents. Well, out of pocket, you're 75 cents in, but you could still sell it for that $1 all day, every day. You'll make 25 cents. Now, what you wouldn't do, though, is you would not buy the candy bar for $1.25. If you could only sell it for $1, you'd be losing money. Same thing with real estate investing. We don't buy a property overpriced if it doesn't create bulletproof cash flow so that we're making money every single month. That's the whole key, and that's what gets you out of the trap. In fact, in 2006, I made money. In 2007, 2008, 2009, 10, no matter if the market went up, down, or sideways, I made money, more and more money. In fact, what's sad is they're more than likely in the next couple of years, there's going to be a big problems in the economy. People might get laid off and it'll be problems. But people say, well, Dustin, if there's a bad thing in the economy, wouldn't that lower rents? Well, I said, well, think about it. If sadly people lose their jobs, then they won't afford their mortgage. And sadly, they're going to lose their home. But what does that do? They still have to live somewhere, so demand for rental properties skyrocket. My rents went up in bad times. And now they were $250 a month in passive income originally. Now I'm making $500, $600, $700, $800, even $1,000 on my properties. And the reason why I was able to become financially independent is because I knew if I buy one property that makes me $250 a month in passive income, that's $3,000 a year without working. 10 properties is $2,500 a month. $30,000 a year without working. 20 properties that make me $250 a month is $5,000 a month in passive income. $60,000 a year. I just had to scale it from there. So that's the big idea. Build a business that makes you bulletproof cash flow every single month.
Yeah. Well, we're quickly becoming a renter nation. That's for sure. I mean, affordability for homes just isn't there anymore. We're building, I don't know, right now we have 700 units slated for new development, at various points right now. So we have a lot of units that we're bringing online all in one market. If that tells you anything, there's a lot of other folks building too. So the point is that we are becoming a renter nation, and there's definitely money in doing the whole rental scenario. So that's just beautiful. So when this property manager, you discovered they're stealing from you, I think it's a common occurrence, especially in those smaller type of deals, because there's not a lot of margin in there. So the property manager ends up stealing from you, right? So how do you determine what property manager to work with? How do you determine that?
That's a great question. And so I'll start with this. if you think of that analogy that I gave of starting a convenience store, well, you would not set up everything in the business, buy inventory, put your money into it, and then see somebody walking around down the street and say, hey, you have a pulse. Come on in here and manage my money, manage my business, manage my customers, manage my inventory, manage my employees. You would not do that. What you would do, though, is you would interview lots and lots of people who want to be the manager of that store. Same thing with real estate investing. What we do is we interview many property managers, many of them, and we interview them multiple times, not just once, not twice, but even maybe 3 or 4 times, because we want to make sure, number one, will they even call you back? Like if they don't call you back when they don't have your money, when they're trying to earn your business, imagine when they have your money. Because I've also had lots of students, and even myself, where they have your money and they're not that trustworthy because they haven't called you back. They don't seem trustworthy. They don't have that experience or whatever it might be. Then they don't call you back. For me, I interview, and everybody, here's like the easy pro tip. Texting is not interviewing. Emailing is not interviewing. Phone calls are interviews. And more than likely, you're not going to be able to get a property manager on Zoom. It's just they're too busy for that. But phone calls, that is how you interview people. My suggestion, interview as many as you can, multiple times. In fact, with one of my students, I have a laundry list, like 22 questions and the answers. So questions you should ask and the answers of what you want to get from them so that they can ask them when they're interviewing. Because you're 100% right, Augustino. Your property manager, well, they're like your quarterback of your football team. They help you score. They protect you. They make sure that you're making money. They're the captain of your team. If you have a bad property manager, my suggestion, fire them fast and hire slow. So I love firing fast and hiring slow, because when you hire somebody slow, you really realize if they are the right fit. I never talk to my property managers unless it's like once every 5 or 6 months. It's just because they have the systems, procedures, and process that I give them so that they run the business for me. And all I do is I go back to play with my kids because I found the right people, gave them everything in the business, system, procedures, and processes to run the business the way I want them to run it.
Nice. So as you're going out and you're looking at different markets, because it sounds to me like you have assets all over the place, right?
Correct.
So are you talking to property managers? Do they have a say in what markets you're going after, or are you pretty much doing that on your own, and how do you do it?
So I start with inventory in a specific city before I go to property management, because if there's no inventory in a city, there's no point to build a business. And when I say inventory, it's the type of homes that I like. And we're starting with residential. Now I've gone to multifamily, syndications, all that sort of route, but we're just talking about like residential, 4 units and below. We love having properties that make us passive income and cash flow every single month. So my suggestion, if you're going to start with residential, you want cookie cutter type homes. These are homes that everybody either wants to rent or buy. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,200 to 17 at the most square feet. We don't want too small where families don't want to live there. We don't want too big that there's extra toilets and walls to paint and flooring to do. We want regular cookie cutter type homes. So I start with inventory. If the city doesn't have the amount of inventory that I would then be able to scale and continue to buy, then I move on. So we start with inventory first. Now I see that city or the county, the entire county, the city area has enough inventory to buy. That's when I then start digging into finding the right property manager. Just like if you're going to start a business, you're not going to start a convenience store in the middle of a desert where there's no people that are going to buy your property or your products. And so we start with the inventory, then jump to the property manager. A lot of my students, this would be funny. They say, hey, Dustin, I found a great city, great inventory. I already have 5 realtors looking at properties for me. And I say, whoa, stop. Who do you have to manage those properties if you bought them? Right. Do not, realtors are literally last on the list. How are you going to fund it? Where are you going to get financing for it? For mortgages, you don't even have that. There's so many other steps in place. We want property managers, mortgages, or mortgage brokers, insurance agents, inspectors. There's so much more before we get to finding the properties. But once we have it built, that's when we turn on the machine. Wholesalers, lots of realtors, other investors, title companies, just send me all the deals. I'll buy the ones that I want.
Yeah, nice. So what sort of things are you looking for then in a new market?
In a new market?
Yeah.
Cash flow. By far, cash flow. But here's the premise. I'm not that smart. Mathematically, it's kind of funny. So more than likely, everybody listening is so much better than me at math. Numbers go into my brain and they literally disappear and flutter away. But what I do, because, if you think, what's kind of ratio for this, cap rate and all that sort of stuff, you might be asking that. Here's my just big, broad principles. As little money out of my pocket as possible to buy the property. Then as little money in a mortgage as possible, as high of passive income. Let's say, give you an example. I would not buy a house for $400,000 and make $250 a month in passive income. I wouldn't say I would not, but it's just, how much better would it be if you bought a $150,000 house that made you $250 a month in passive income? Well, 1 month that $400,000 house is not rented, my goodness, like that might eat up your entire year of passive income if it's not rented for a month to maybe 2 months. How much better if you found good areas? Now, remember, we are buying inventory. We may not want to live there. We might even not care to visit that state. It doesn't matter. We have a business that other people want to live in those cities. They have families there. They have businesses there. They have whatever it might be. And so what we do is we look for the inventory and we buy in that same city that actually has good inventory. We built the entire business. Does that all make sense?
Yes, sure does. Sure does. No, I like it. I like it. I mean, that's the best way to do it, right? I like to find how properties in an area, plenty of inventory, plenty of jobs, of course. Is there jobs moving to that local area? What are the jobs paying? What sort of jobs are there? I mean, I look at all that information too. You know, I personally stay away from like tertiary markets where there's not a whole lot of activity. To your point about opening the convenience store, you know, if there's greater activity, there's more money. That's what it means. And people want to be around that buzz. It doesn't matter where it is, you know? So absolutely. I totally agree. Totally agree. All right. So we covered a lot of stuff here today. What, if you had a piece of bulletproof advice for someone considering getting into this business, what would you tell them?
Oh man, it has to be, well, I'll give you two. Always go for passive income. That's by far, like if you go for passive income and cash flow, you're going to be saved a lot of the time. Like it's not going to make it so that, you know, problems will come, but it's so much better when you have cash. That's number one. The second one, we've hit it all the whole entire episode. Build the business first. If there's anything to take away from, build the business first, because that's going to protect you from possibly doing things wrong. In fact, if you have a property manager that goes and looks at a property before you even buy it and says, yes, this is a good property. This is how much it would cost to fix up. This is how much we could rent it for. That's great information protecting you rather than just buying some property that you've never had anybody else check out. So that passive income, number one, and cash flow with that. And then at the same time, build the business first.
Love it. Love it. All right, guys. Well, if you want to reach out to Dustin, you can reach him via his website at masterpassiveincome.com. Go ahead and check that out. He's got a lot of other materials there as well. I think he's got a free course on there too, right?
Yeah, actually, so I'd love to give it out. So if you text the word rental, RENTAL, rental to 33777, rental to 33777, or you can go to masterpassiveincome.com/free course, all one word, free course. I'll give it to you, show you how to find an area anywhere in the country to invest, build the business, scale the business, quit your job. Yeah, you can even find me on my podcast, the Master Passive Income Podcast. It's definitely mostly a solo show, but I've had you on there as well. And so my podcast, I love just giving out all this information. You can even, I actually like Instagram, because funny enough. So you can find me, DM me on there. It's the Dustin Heiner, so THE Dustin Heiner. And I'm not that arrogant. It's the only handle I can find. But honestly, Augustino, it's so much fun having this ability to share all this information, because talking to great people like you, we see that it's possible. So many things are possible. With that, I even created a conference. This is kind of funny enough. I had so many students that they wanted to meet up. And so I said, well, let me call up my friends. So I have so many other friends like you that have podcasts and students and all that sort of stuff. So I created a conference called the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference. And with that, it's not one of those sales pitch conferences. In fact, it's a community of people that are just helping each other out. Right now, we literally have over 40 speakers at this year's conference. It's going to be here in May. But if you go to rubcon.com, REWBCON.com, rubcon.com, and use the promo code podcast, I'll literally give you 10% off your ticket. We just want to see you change your life by investing in real estate, because there's so many ways, from syndications, multifamily, Airbnb, storage units, everything out there. So as best I can, just trying to serve as much as I can, just like you, Augustino.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, guys, hopefully you got some great information about how to get into these deals, the importance of getting into deals as well. Like if you haven't considered real estate, or maybe just starting to, getting into the real estate game is absolutely critical now more than ever. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.
You've been listening to the Bulletproof Cash Flow Show. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We know we had fun. Make sure to visit our Apple Podcast page and leave us a 5-star review. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. For real estate coaching, events, and resources, hit up bulletproofcashflow.com. Till next time.
No information in this episode should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Any investment opportunities mentioned on this show are limited to accredited or sophisticated investors. Any investments will only be made with proper disclosure and subscription documentation and subject to all applicable laws. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice.